snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hi guys! So today I'm going to be doing a book review, and the book that I'm going to be reviewing is The Bronze Horseman, which is by Paullina Simons, and I am really happy to have finally finished this book. It's taken me since the start of December, I think, so really long time. But I have finished it and I will tell you what I thought of it. So this book took me way longer than most books tend to take me to read. And that was kind of because it's very tiny type, like I've shown you before, but it is actually very tiny type. So it's very small and it's over 600 pages anyway. So when you add in the 600 pages, the small margins and the tiny type, it's probably closer to 1,000 if it was regular type. So it's a very long book for a start. And then secondly, it's also historical fiction, which is something that I do enjoy reading, but it does take me a while to get through because it definitely means that I have to take in the dates and all the people's names and sort of all the events surrounding the main story as well as the main story. That definitely was a factor of why it took me so long. And then also just the writing was so up and down. It was such a hard book for me to get through because there were areas which I really enjoyed, and then there were other areas that I just really wanted to put the book down and not pick it up again for ages. So yeah, it was very up and down. It started off well. It's quite interesting. It's just setting the scene at the beginning, and there's two main characters who are called Tatiana. She is a young girl. She's 14, I believe, and she's very young. She's living in Russia in the time that Hitler is about to invade, and she doesn't really know anything about war. She has this kind of idealised version of war and she thinks it'll be brilliant and loads of fun, but of course it's not like that at all, and the stark reality hits her, and it's kind of all about her discovering that she's in a very flawed family and that when it comes to it, you know, war is very hard, very tough, and it pushes people to their limits, and really she has to kind of deal with a lot of bad stuff that goes on in her family and just generally all the stuff that happens and is a byproduct of war. So the other main character is called Alexander, and he is a Red Army officer. He works for the Russian army, and he's got a very interesting backstory because he's actually originally from America. So having this set in World War II Leningrad was actually really good because I had no idea about Russia. So from the point of view of historical context and historical fiction, this was really well written. I really enjoyed the historical aspects. I thought that she actually had done her research and that the story was very believable from the point of view of all of the stuff happening and all of the dates and times and people and places being very accurate. I definitely believe that that was very well researched. Also sort of all the rationing and all of the sort of day-to-day lifestyle, that was described in very good detail. I definitely felt like it was very true to what it would have been like, and I could definitely relate to that and sort of imagine it as the world. And it's very similar to sort of how I imagine Britain and how I imagine sort of other countries during wartime. It's very typical, and it was just very believable. So from that point of view, this was a really good story. However, I did have issues with the characters because Tatiana's very young and she doesn't know about a lot of stuff that she really should know about, and she's just very clueless, very innocent, to the point where she was too naive to be believable at times. And then there's also the fact that she's actually quite a whiny character, which really irritated me because I know that she tries her best throughout the story. She tries her best to be as helpful as she can be to her family, and she's definitely very loving and very caring, but there were times where I just thought that she was whining way too much and I was really irritated. And there is a love triangle that is going on throughout the entirety of this book, which really irritated me because there was no need for the love triangle whatsoever if they had just been straight up about what they were feeling, and they weren't, and I don't know why, but it was just irritating to me because I don't mind love triangles when they're done well, but this was silly. Tatiana's family, as I said before, they're really nasty, and the war kind of brings out their even nastier side. They kind of expect her to do everything for them. They expect her to do the cooking, the washing, the cleaning, everything, because she lives with her father and mother and grandparents and her sister Dasha and her brother Pasha. and Pasha actually gets sent away very, very quickly, but he is basically the pride and joy of the family, and she is kind of the outcast, being his twin sister. Everyone kind of forgets about her and just tells her to do stuff without being grateful and everything, which I could understand why she was whiny and stuff in the end, because she kind of had the right to be, but it was just very, very annoying at times, and I definitely felt like her family was too extreme. Alexander takes his job really seriously. He's very formal, his job comes first, and he's very committed. There are two side characters who kind of feature quite a lot as well. Dimitri, who is Alexander's best friend, and Dasha, who is Tatiana's sister. And those two come into the story quite a lot. My main issue with the entire book was nothing to do with the historical context. I thought that was really well written and very accurate. But it was definitely that I felt like the two characters, who were the main two, just really didn't fit for each other. They were just not right. Alexander's very prim and proper and formal, and he kind of knows what rules he wants, and he enforces them to know his place in society and understand what is right and wrong. Tatiana, on the other hand, because she's been brought up in this very sort of strict household and her family's depending on her and they just put a lot of pressure onto her, she's very rebellious and she's a bit idiotic and silly sometimes, and they were so opposite that I didn't even think opposites could attract. I did not see them as a couple. I thought that they were better off apart, and that the fact that the whole story is kind of a love story set in a wartime, all about them, it was just irritating to me at points. There were some points that were very much believable and very entertaining, and there were sort of jokes and nice emotional moments that happened that I did enjoy, but on the whole it just wasn't convincing enough, and they didn't seem to fit well enough as characters to be believable, in my opinion. Another thing that irritated me was that this book is actually divided into book 1 and book 2, and book 1 ends very suddenly, and then book 2 begins, and book 2 is literally filled with sexual scenes and just a lot of nudity. And the kind of aim of the book seems to shift from sort of telling you all about the war and how that's going, and then them dealing with their love within the war, to just everything is suddenly a bliss and they're having sex and it's going on and on and on. It just completely shifts from historical fiction to almost erotica. It was that sexual, and there were that many sexual scenes that I was just getting irritated by the end of it. So yeah, that is a warning that there are a lot of sexual scenes in the second part of this book, and I don't really understand why that happened, but it did, so yeah. On the whole, I would say that although Paullina Simons clearly does have skill at writing historical fiction, personally I just did not connect enough with the characters in this to find them enticing and believable and want to read them that much. But if you do like sort of tragedy and sort of tragic fated war and wartime tales, then this is definitely a really good historical fiction, and if you like sort of doomed romance, then this is definitely one of those. So it's definitely very informative about Russia during the wartime, which is really an interesting thing that I took away from the book, but it personally wasn't for me that much, so I don't think I'll be carrying on with this series. I ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars because it was okay, but it was just nothing more than that for me, and there were parts that irritated me. And that is all of my thoughts. Definitely let me know down below if you have any thoughts about this book, if you read it, if you liked it, and if you didn't, because I kind of did and I kind of didn't, and I wasn't sure what to rate it, whether I should rate it 2 or 3 stars, but I ended up on 2 just because I found like there was more that I didn't like about it than that I did. So yeah, definitely leave me your comments if you've read this and what you thought about it, and just remember that if you are going to write any spoilers, please put spoiler at the top of your comments so that no one gets spoiled. Thank you, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye! Me and you gonna have a little chat.